Over here doing a little updating on my locations. I noticed that here at my car wash, the M&Ms are crumbling and cracked, and that obviously is going to be a turnoff to everyone, including me and the customers. And so it's losing me money, and it's not gaining me any sales. And if I put more M&Ms in here, the same thing's just going to happen. So I had to figure out another solution. The gumballs look low. The Skittles look like I still put too much in there, like I just did on the one that I just switched out in, because I'm pulling this one out. But you can see that the Skittles retain their freshness, just like they just look so much better. Like I can easily reuse these, right? And so what I did was I decided to throw a Viver in there. So it does have now Starburst, Skittles, specialty gumballs. The problem is, and I'll show you, it's on the right side, and so there's direct sunlight coming in. It was on the left side, which was shaded, but it looks like there's a bunch of stuff in the way. So it looks like they put it on the other side, but now I have direct sunlight. So that's going to cause potentially an issue. Not so much with the gumballs. I think the Skittles can survive like they have. But the difference is, as long as the Starburst don't melt, and that's just going to be, hopefully they don't, because they'll get stuck in the machine. And then they won't dispense. That will be a problem within itself, and then that's going to be a bust. I have a couple other alternatives on deck. Like, I'm about to divulge into those Tootsie Roll gumball size, Tootsie candy coated like Tootsie Rolls, and I'm kind of excited to try them out. I'm hoping. Well, the nice thing is, in a situation like this, they would retain their freshness, and I can put them where the Starbursts are, right? But I'm looking at these M&Ms. I'm losing out on what looks like probably a half container, and I don't think I can reuse these. I did have an idea at some of my lesser locations, and unfortunately, I've kind of gotten rid of like most of my lesser locations. But I do have a tire shop like down the street, and this is like a great strategy to have a couple of lesser locations to where maybe the people aren't going to be so particular or picky. And what I was thinking was using my semi-outdated candy, my C- grade candy, but giving it out at a very generous portion size, right? And just hoping that they get so much candy that they'll be like, oh my God, this is such a great deal. I don't even care if the candy doesn't look that good, right? It's kind of like giving away like fruit or vegetables that look ugly, you know what I mean, for like a discounted price. And I'd be like, dude, right? Like, hey, they're still good vegetables. They're just not as pretty as those ones. So here's more. Here's a cheaper price, you could say. Because I have like too much inventory of candy at my house that's just like sitting there, and I'm like not willing to just throw it away right away because it's still like decent, but it's also not getting used, and so eventually it's just going to expire. So I'm like, there's got to be some middle ground solution, and I believe that's it. And I think this is a pretty great tip that I am going to try to exercise out. So I might go there and fill that puppy up with like 3 C-grade candies. It's still the name brand candy, right? I'm still putting in the M&Ms, the Skittles, all that stuff. It's just not the best looking candy. But once they see how much they get on the dispense, I mean, hell, I'll give them twice as much, because I would feel so much better about like utilizing it and like exercising it out to the point to where at least I get some profit back, versus throwing it away, right? And taking a total loss, right? Because for some reason, even if I don't profit, but I get my money back, like say full value on my money back on the candy, dude, that would be a huge victory to kind of cross it out and say, hey, I didn't profit, but I didn't lose anything, you know, and I got rid of all this candy that I wasn't going to use. But anyways, let's take a look. This has a plentiful amount of quarters, right? I mean, obviously it's been a cool minute since I've been here, but to me, it demonstrates that there's a need or a want. This thing's heavy, right? There's a need, there's a want, there's a demand, and the thing is, who knows how long those Skittles weren't good for, or excuse me, the M&Ms. And the reason why you may be asking yourself, oh, why don't you just put something else in there? Well, this location happens to be particular. I've mentioned before that he doesn't want anything that has nuts in it, that has peanut butter, that could be, you know, allergy based. So I am limited. The cool thing is I could use those new Tootsie Rolls that I'm getting. They will fit in the new machine that I just put in there instead of the Starburst, even though Starbursts are a hot ticket, right? But I also have to think about how much I'm making, you know, and I did the calculations on the Tootsie Rolls. I want to say it was like a 1,160 count, and it cost after delivery, it's going to be like $140, and I think I make around $150. But remember, I have to give out 20% of that 1,160 count, which came out to about $20 or $30, which seems like it doesn't really leave me with much, right? But I did a calculation, right? Divided by that 1,160 count into the profit that would be made. And if I did my math right, and if my calculations are sound, the profit that I would make per Tootsie Roll is around 10.5 cents, which actually is pretty good. So when I saw the calculations, I mean, it is right there within the vicinity that I want and need to be at, right? To make it justifiable to use a certain candy. We could do a test, because I remember I was trying to test out the Starburst to see how much they were costing me, how many quarters I was getting from a container. And I want to say the container roughly is around $11, and they were and it was making, I want to say, somewhere around $22. Now remember, I mean, that thing dispenses out somewhere between 2 or 5 pieces. So if you run the numbers again, or let's just say I run the numbers again, well, they're going to be off, give or take, depending on how much each Ven dispenses. And so, you know, that leaves me in question. But if you do the math, let's just say we're at 22 and it cost me 11. Well, you could say that it made $11 profit, but remember, you still have to take out the 20% VIG, which is going to be on 22, 2.2 times 2 is 4.4, rounded up is 4.5. Now you're taking the 4.5 off of the 22, leaving you with 17.5. 17.5 minus 17.5 minus the cost of the candy, which is either $10 or $11 depending on where you get it. Let's just say I've been getting it for 11. Well, now I'm left with 6.5 in profit, right? So if we take the 6.5 and how many pulls did we spend on getting that 22? Well, if there's 4 pulls in one, right? 4 quarters into $1, that's 4 vens. Well, if we have 22, we could times that by 4, which would be around 88. So now we have to take the 88 and divide the 6.5 into the 88 to see how much we're actually making per vend off the Starburst on average. Is that number going to be less or more than another candy? Or let's say in this instance, we would be talking about those Tootsie Rolls at 10.5, because it's a good example, because those are two of the types of candies that would go into that type of dispense, right? Because you either have the gumball or the candy. These are both going to be in the gumball slot. But then there also is another factor, which I'm still trying to come up with a calculation. But that's also, and this is obviously, I feel like, important. It's how often they're selling. What's the frequency of the purchase, right? Because if I make 10 cents off a vend on the Tootsie Roll, and let's just say I made 8 cents on the vend on the Starburst, you could say, oh, well, I should do the Tootsie Roll because I'm making more money per vend. But then you have to ask yourself, but are you getting the same amount of vends or more? Or are you getting less? And if so, how much less over the amount of time, right? How many cells on Starburst am I going to get at a day at a certain location? Now, obviously, there's calculations, right, on everything, because every location is going to be different on the frequency. We would have to find an average, but we could use some locations as examples, right? And so we have to ask ourselves, okay, how many cells a day are we getting on the Starburst? How many cells on the day are we getting at the same location instead of the Starburst on the Tootsie Rolls, right? Because I'd rather take 8 cents and sell 5 pulls a day than take 10 cents and sell 2 pulls a day, right? So there's that frequency equation that I haven't mastered, but I'm working on it, to try to get some more clarity on, that information. This location made $78.75, right? And whether this was 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, it says, hey, I can profit at this location. I can get enough sales to make this, to warrant that this location deserves to stick around. And more than that, if I have enough of locations that we can make a certain amount of profit at each location, and if we multiply that by a certain amount of locations, technically we can make X amount of money, and X amount of money could buy our financial freedom. So here we are giving up 7.8 times 2, 14.6, 15, or 0.8, 15.6, 1575 is coming off the top. 1575. $15.75 is right there. And then so minus 5, I want to say, is the weight of the container, brings us down to like 62.75. Obviously it's been a cool minute. I'll have to let you know how long it's been. I'll put that in the comments. But anyways, to me this says, hey, can I score some more car washes? It's great location. Anyways, moving forward.